I'm so proud of you. I know he would be too.
Riverdale just paid a very emotional tribute to Fred Andrews and Luke Perry, so let's find out just what happened in the season 4 premiere. What's going on, you lovely people? Lizzie here, and I'm honestly sorry if I look like a mess and sound like a stuffed up mess. It's literally a mix of an allergy attack and then just sobbing my eyes out during this episode. I feel like if you watched this season premiere episode of Riverdale, you may be feeling or looking the same, because I'm still trying to recover. Like, it is a good thing that this week's episode of This Is Us was on the tamer side, wasn't super emotional to where, like, tears were drawn, because they were all reserved for this episode of Riverdale. Like, I used them 100 times over, probably. And I don't cry a lot. It takes a lot for me to cry, but that's just how much Luke Perry's, like, impact was on me. Like, I grew up watching him on Beverly Hills 90210. He's who I bonded with my sister over because she was older and that was her demo for a show and I was a little too young to be watching it, but we were both like, dude, this guy's cute. It was like a nice thing that we watched together. So yeah, I followed his career for a long time. I watched 8 Seconds a lot, that movie, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, of course, the movie version. So yeah, I think that the impact of him, there's been like very few actors who have passed who have had this kind of effect on me. I feel like it's Luke, then Cameron Boyce, and I think the other one that really hit me hard was Paul Walker. And so that just speaks a testament to who those people were, that they impacted people so much. But now I'm getting off track. We knew this emotional episode was coming and that it was going to be the season premiere and that this episode would be a little bit different than what we were used to on the show. And I feel like a lot of us, or at least me, we have this love-hate relationship with the show, but yet we keep watching. But it was a beautiful tribute to Fred Andrews and Luke, but of course there's little things that are sprinkled in that may set up for future conflicts or storylines in the future of this season. But overall, beautiful episode, and in between the sadness, we had our typical things that we've come to expect from most episodes of Riverdale. Some of those being Archie and Veronica being sex-crazed, horny teenagers, Archie shirtless from every angle, and a brooding Jughead deep in thought writing and narrating the episode. But let's go ahead and break down this premiere. So, our Riverdale residents are gearing up for the 4th of July. And thanks to Jughead's narration, it seems like the terrors of the farm and Griffins and Gargoyles have started to kind of die down and become more of like a legend. Now, the town is preparing for the Independence Day parade, which is going to be the first time it's happening in 3 years, because that parade and the fireworks used to be sponsored by the Blossoms, and of course the death of Jason Blossom really tainted that holiday for them, as we kind of really see and understand when Cheryl pitches a fit hearing about the parade, while of course talking to the corpse of her brother who's still sitting in a wheelchair that she brings breakfast to. Yeah, can someone please get Cheryl some mental health help this season? Like, this girl, she makes progress, but then she does stuff like this, and I just think she needs to get some help. Anyway, Cheryl ends up confronting Archie, Jughead, Veronica, and Betty, who are outside Pop's building afloat. After that strenuous physical labor, the group then goes inside to eat, and they discuss going camping that weekend, but then those plans are put on hold when Archie gets a phone call that no one ever wants to receive. FP is the bearer of bad news as he informs them that Fred was in Cherry Creek driving home when he pulled over to help someone whose car was broken down on the side of the road. Another vehicle then came upon them too fast and ended up striking Fred and sped off, meaning it was a hit and run, which just infuriates everyone, especially Archie. And part of me was like, oh man, are we gonna spend this whole season with Archie trying to get vengeance for Fred and trying to track down Fred's killer, which would make sense, but I feel like would just be maybe pushing it a little too far. Well, thankfully that gets resolved by the end of this episode. But the part about this scene that really like killed me was Vegas the dog whimpering by the door, knowing that, just feeling that Fred wasn't coming home, knowing that something's wrong. Like, dogs are just fascinating creatures, and they know when you're upset. They know when something's wrong. They've smelled cancer in people. Like, and dogs just make me emotional anyways. So that just was the first time I like truly, like, the tears flew out of my eyes more than normal. But back to the episode and not me ranting about my feelings. Mary, Archie, and Veronica are then meeting with the funeral planner, and Veronica's planning on paying for everything. The problem is, because of the 4th of July holiday, Fred can't be transported back to town until the 6th. We then get all the kids sharing memories about Fred, and it gets emotional, especially when Betty talks about how Fred was basically like her dad. And then we have Archie actually sharing a memory, but then it gets to be too much and he has to excuse himself. He's still upset and can't sleep that night and has a nightmare where he sees his grandpa and then the rest of his friends and family sitting there asking where Fred is, and his grandpa says that Archie was supposed to go get Fred. So Archie wakes up in a panic and takes this as a sign that he needs to be the one to bring Fred home. He can't wait till after the holiday, so he, Betty, Veronica, and Jughead borrow a hearse from Reggie and drive up to Cherry Creek. They visit the police station first, and the deputy lets Archie know that they do have some information about what happened that night. They know the make and the model of the car that struck Fred, but there's no other details. Unfortunately, they don't have the license plate, but they're still looking. They then go to the funeral home to pick up Fred's body, but since Archie is a minor, the guy won't release the body. Archie then calls Mary Andrews, his mom, and well, she's a lawyer and she does what she has to, and Archie is granted permission to take the body home, but unfortunately it's going to take 2 to 3 hours to get that body prepped. Before that, however, Archie needs a little bit of, I guess, in a way, closure. He asks to see the body to confirm it is Fred, because on this show, you know nobody's dead until you really see that body and that face. Now, it makes sense that they couldn't actually do that in this episode. They couldn't show Luke Perry, but it's implied, and you know, Archie is about to go look at the body, but he can't, and instead he sends Betty and Veronica in, and they do confirm that that is Fred's body. They then get Fred's belongings and head to the accident site where Fred's truck is still sitting. Meanwhile, Tony and Cheryl come to visit Mary Andrews, and Cheryl asks if she can do something special for the family because she knows the kind of pain that they're feeling, and she never wants someone to really feel that, and she wants to help the family. So does this mean that maybe she'll finally allow fireworks? You'll have to wait and see, or you already know because you watched this episode. Now, when the gang gets to the accident site, Archie takes some moments for himself when he goes and sits in the truck looking around at all the memories of Fred. Then someone drives out and gets out of the car with a bunch of flowers in order to pay respects to the site and Fred. And, well, I mean, get ready for another outpouring of freaking tears, because out walks guest star Shannon Doherty, and it turns out that her character is the woman who Fred was helping that night. She already knew Archie's name because she says Fred did nothing but talk about Archie and how proud he was of him the whole time. Then she reveals that she was the one who was about to be struck by the speeding car, but Fred pushed her out of the way. She then joins hands with the kids and pays her respects for Fred, also leading them in a prayer. And well, this is where the sob fest just obviously continues for really obvious reasons. Shannon Doherty co-starred with Luke on Beverly Hills 90210. They remained great friends throughout the years, and just seeing that how they tied his, you know, biggest work of sorts into this show, and they got to honor him in all ways with different people from his life coming together. It was honestly just a beautiful moment. And there was a little moment of like, is this lady gonna be the one that struck him? Is this the guilt that she's coming back to this site? But thankfully it makes sense that Fred would be saving people, and it was a beautiful moment. Now, after this encounter, the gang then head to the diner to wait out the hours until Fred's body is ready to be taken home. Archie, though, is finally starting to really open up about certain things he's having. He's going through those stages of grief, and at this point, he's angry at Fred for dying as a hero. He thinks that Fred was just always so caught up in helping other people, and it wasn't heroic. This was Fred being senseless, and yeah, Archie is just angry while the others try to tell Archie that that's not true. Fred was a hero. Archie, though, just isn't really seeing it that way at this moment, so he goes outside to take a moment to breathe, but then gets a call from FP, who informs Archie that the culprit from the hit and run turned himself in and made bail, so now he's out of jail until the hearing, which Archie is not happy about. Now, even though FP tells Archie that the guy seemed very shaken up and remorseful about this whole situation, like it really affected him, it's not enough for Archie. Now, FP does tell Archie the guy's name, so Archie uses the phone book to get this guy's address, because only towns on this show seem to have phone booths with updated phone books. unless this guy's lived in this town his whole life, then, you know, maybe that's why his name's in the phone book. Anyway, angry Archie then emerges and knocks on George, the guilty party's door. And when George opens it, Archie just comes rolling in like a steam train, slamming George against the wall, demanding answers, just getting a little bit more violent with each question that George just can't really seem to get an answer out to, because he's genuinely shaken up and torn up about this situation, and he's just sitting there taking this like it's something that he deserves. Eventually, you hear a distraught voice from the other room yelling at Archie to stop, and we learn the truth about what happened the night of this accident. It was George's son, who doesn't have a license yet and took the car out when he wasn't supposed to, that hit Fred. Now the kid, he had no idea what to do, and this is a case of the boy's dad trying to protect him and taking the blame. Now Archie is seeing this unfold, and it kind of gives him some clarity, and he realizes that this man is a lot like Fred, who will do anything to protect his son from something that was genuinely probably an accident. So now Archie goes outside to kind of sit and process what just happened when the rest of the gang come and find him. Now Archie explains how it was just a stupid, terrified kid, and how Archie was guilty of the same thing that this kid did, stealing a car and lying to his dad and all that, but it just didn't turn out the way that it happened unfortunately for this kid. And Archie's just like, it's a case of a dad protecting his son, just like how Fred would have done if Archie was in this situation. So now Archie's going through the guilt phase, as he thinks Fred would be ashamed of him and how he just acted and everything that he's been doing, and Veronica just sits there and reassures Archie that Fred would be proud. They then go and pick up Fred's body and begin their trip home, and we begin the last act of the tears really flowing for this episode. So as they're entering town, they're stopped by FP, who is waiting and wants to give Fred a proper police escort home. Then as the group are driving, the floodgates for our eyes open again as we see what Cheryl was actually up to. Like, this is probably the nicest thing Cheryl has done on this show so far. Like, she has her moments where she does do some nice things, but this is like next level. It turns out that she kind of organized essentially a welcome home parade for Fred, as all the residents of Riverdale are lined up on the streets with signs for Fred saying, "Welcome home, Fred, we love you, we'll remember you." And it's just another moment that shows the impact of Fred on every person that he met, which is a symbolic of kind of the life of Luke Perry himself, who touched so many people. If you read online after he passed, all the stories of people who had met him, whether it was for a second or knew him for years, no one had anything bad to say about him, and I feel like that's what this scene beautifully symbolizes. Now when the group get to the house, Mary hugs Archie and says she's proud of him and says Fred would be too, and I feel like that's a little bit of relief for Archie. We then go to the funeral service where Josie is singing Amazing Grace, and I believe this is her character's last episode on the show before she moves to New York, and then we see her on the spinoff at mid-season, Katie Keene. Archie then gives a touching tribute to Fred, re-emphasizing the impact that he had on the whole town. Archie talks about his future kids and how he's going to point to a brick in a building and tell them that their grandpa built that. Now essentially though, it culminates in the sentiment that Fred will always be a part of Riverdale.
But his spirit and his memory lives on. In this town and everyone he's met, Fred Andrews will always be a part of Riverdale. I love you so much, Dad.
Now then, as everyone's leaving the funeral, Veronica stops the funeral director to talk about the payment, but the lady informs Veronica that Hiram paid the bill in full, which leaves a confused look on Veronica's face, and I'm sure also on my face and maybe your face. It's like, did Hiram do this out of the actual kindness of whatever little bit of heart he has, or is this just a way of him kind of like getting another bit of leverage to hold over Veronica or Archie? And it's kind of hard to tell at this point. I wanna believe that there is some good in Hiram, and that even Fred melted a little bit of that cold ass heart that he has, and that's what I'm gonna stick to. But I feel like there's definitely gonna be a confrontation between Veronica and Hiram in the future of this season about why he paid for this funeral. Now, the events of this episode have caused Betty to even think about her relationship with her own father, and we see her go stop at Hal's grave, which we see is essentially the complete opposite of Fred, as Hal's grave has been vandalized and trashed, and she kind of cleans it up a little bit. Then the episode goes into Jughead writing Fred's obituary, and of course reading it out loud so that we can all hear it, and again start to get emotional as we see the characters who are not in town reading it from their various places. faces. We have Hiram and Hermione in jail, and like I said, see the look on Hiram's face? It's a little confusing. You can't tell if it's sadness, indifference, what it is. We also see FP reading it, and we also see Alice losing it as she reads the newspaper. Now, last we saw of Alice, she disappeared with the farm while she was working undercover with the real Charles, the son. But this at least confirms what I think we are actually kind of already knew, was that Alice is alive. So it's good that she's not trapped somewhere being tortured. Like, she seems like she's in an office and she's doing okay. So that's going to be an interesting storyline to see, like, how she's infiltrating the farm and how she gets communication back with our residents of Riverdale. But that's for another time. We then see Luke's face appear on screen in the form of some pictures in Mary's memory box. Her and Archie then go outside to the yard where everyone else is gathered for, what do you know, a fireworks show. It seems like Cheryl has changed her mind and brought fireworks because Archie told a story earlier in the episode about how one of his favorite memories was Fred brought fireworks home to light in the yard when the big fireworks show was canceled, and so that's what they're doing here. And you know, it's nice to see Cheryl actually lighting the first one, seeing as how she was so against the fireworks at the beginning of this episode. Archie then tells Veronica he feels like he's not even half as good as Fred was, but he's going to try to be, and he's going to get there by honoring Fred every day. Archie then goes into the garage, and we see him look around, and of course there are more moments of him remembering past little things with Fred in the garage. We see those clips come on screen, so we do see more of Luke's face as it deals with the garage, the jalopy, and then the show kind of like zooms out as we see Archie crying over the jalopy, and a picture of Archie and Fred comes into focus. And yeah, that's the end of this rough episode. That was a tough one to get through. I think this was truly one of their best episodes. It was the perfect tribute. It was beautifully done, and it was nice to step away from the craziness that this show does sometimes that's not believable. That's kind of like, what, jumping the shark, and you're like, why are we doing this? And just have it feel like a grounded, normal drama, you know? And part of me wishes that the show could maybe keep that vibe going forward and maybe just kind of sprinkle in some of that suspense and murder mystery and stop jumping the shark, but I have a feeling that's not gonna happen. Yeah, I'll still be watching. I can't quit the show. But now, let's just go ahead and watch the promo and see what's ahead for the next episode.
Guys, we're gonna be late for the first day of senior year. Everybody in the shadows coming in today. So much for a quiet senior year.
Yeah, like I said, things are gonna get crazy again, and I don't know, I feel like Kevin's in danger, and they need to leave Kevin alone and give him a good, solid storyline this season. No matter how small that storyline is, I think him and Tony deserve a little bit better. I know there's a lot of characters. People have yelled at me before, being like, well, you want the core four, but then you also want these other people to have big storylines. They don't need to be big storylines. I just want them to have some character development. You could be in like 5 episodes and still show some development. Now I'm just getting off track. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this tribute episode. If I keep talking about it more and thinking about it, I don't know what's going to happen to me. But beautiful episode. And it's time for you to hit up the comments and let me know what you thought about it. And what are your favorite memories from either Luke or Fred Andrews on this show? What do you think is going to happen the rest of this season? Let me know. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my recaps. And you can check out more of my videos right over here. As always, I'm Lisa. Thanks for letting me ramble, and I'll see you soon.